I signed up for this game literally the same day it was announced back in 2018, and guess what? I wasn't invited to test out this mobile game despite my long existence on Battle.net and many countless hours spent on different Blizzard games. No one actually cares about these achievements, but it was still disappointing to get no treat after all. And well, a few years later this game surprisingly came out on PC, and I guess I can finally get my hands on this masterpiece and give my unbiased opinion about Diablo Immortal, so let's get started, shall we? Diablo Immortal, the glorious no phones game. In this video I'll try to explain what I liked and didn't like about this game and why you should keep your wallet away from it. This game has received a negative reaction from the audience ever since it was first announced. Out of nowhere Blizzard surprised hardcore players with a new game, and it was Diablo Immortal, the phone exclusive game at this time. I'm glad they actually ported this game later to PC, because my phone can't handle such resource hungry and oversized games anyway, and I'm not a big fan of playing on overheating small screens plugged in with a charger or while sitting somewhere in a stuffy bus and playing with earphones. So after I launched this game on my PC, I was pleasantly surprised. My first impressions were actually good. I was really surprised to see customization window for my character, but this feature later turned out to be rather pointless, because most of the time you don't have an opportunity to look on your character, especially with the isometric camera, plus the game doesn't allow to hide helm and the character's portrait is just some static image. Once I created my character, I started the game, and here was another surprise: the voice acting and the story. The cinematics and visuals were also top notch for a mobile game. The combat and sound design had also encouraged me to play for longer. Despite the fact that most of the abilities movesets came directly from Diablo 3, they successfully made it to this game and captured the original feeling. Skills also feel impactful and straightforward. The only difference here is that some of these abilities now require players to highlight a specific area of impact. And for the sake of mobile gaming, there are no more mana requirements and skills are rather tied to a fixed cooldown duration. So if some of you expected to spam Whirlwind, Cyclone Strike or other fun stuff, just forget about it. As I mentioned earlier, first impressions were actually good. The only questionable aspect was the controls. Keyboard layout, barely noticeable mouse cursor, which you cannot change with standard features, and UI interaction in general simulating touch screens. I will talk about these negative aspects later in this video. So in short, the campaign was quite good, not memorable but good. The voice acting, the characters, the cinematics, the dialogues, everything is good, and the quest line itself wasn't challenging much. Players could just chill and play the story while leveling their characters, and only sometimes the game forced players to reach a certain level threshold to continue the story and move to a new location. This happened to me a few times near the end when the amount of experience was still not enough and I had to constantly replay daily contracts and clear portals. And I was actually expecting this game to force me to buy something to proceed to the next zone, pay for skills, a gear score, or buy out revivals, for example, but no. The whole story from begin to the end is free and there are basically no restrictions apart from the level requirements. In my opinion, the actual story is unsurprisingly generic, and without spoilers I can say for sure that after Tyrael destroyed the World Stone in Diablo 2, all the players will do in this story is look for the fragments and destroy them with the help of Deckard Cain, while the actual antagonist named Skarn will obviously try to prevent the heroes from doing so. Nothing special for me, to be honest. Diablo was never about the story but the gameplay. It was quite generic, without much cringe, except for the moment when the monk, I think her name was Oza, died from a traitor who tried to take the shard to the afterlife. I don't think this story was boring. Again, it was just generic and without any plot twist. Maybe at first you will like the storyline quite a bit, but unfortunately you will have to complete it each time over again for each new character, because the game has no option to skip the story, and without the story completion the list of players' activities will be limited. As soon as the story began to come to an end, it was the time to get actively involved in the new activities. Challenge Rift, also known as Greater Rifts, and Elder Rifts, also known as Nephilim Rifts. Doesn't it sound familiar? Yes, absolutely. These are a simple ripoff with extremely repetitive tile sets but with some minor environmental changes. Was I expecting some new endgame activity that wouldn't remind me of Diablo 3? No, but the tile sets, they are absolutely the same as in Diablo 3. You can literally see the same pattern from the adventure mode maps. For example, the Halls of Agony, Crypts, Ariad Crater, Library of Zoltun or the caves from Act 5. The only difference that they came up with these Elder Rifts is that players can now place their free-to-play or legendary pay-to-win quests into the portal to add rift modifiers and increase the rewards from killing a Rift Guardian. As for the Challenge Rifts, they pretty much serve the same role as Greater Rifts from Diablo 3, where you can just select a certain difficulty level up to 200 and attempt to beat the map in the shortest time possible for the basic rewards and the leaderboards. I'm okay with this kind of endgame activities, but Blizzard, or should I say NetEase, didn't bother much adding something new to diversify the game. I'm talking about the maps. For the players who spend hours in Diablo 3, the maps and skills are almost identical. Will someone like me play this activity to see the Halls of Agony for the millionth time? I don't think so. The only big change they made is the legendary gems and the upgrade system. They certainly modify characters' output damage and serve the crucial role in becoming stronger, destroying rifts faster and possibly melting players in pay-to-win PvP, but I am not really interested in this Ponzi scheme. But what I really liked was the story dungeons. They all look different and have different environment. I especially remember the battle on the raft and the fight with the boss on the descending elevator. Funny enough, these two scripted fights were shown back in 2018 and there is nothing else present in the final version of the game. I wish NetEase could add more of these interactive fights, as I mentioned before, and implemented them somehow into the Greater Rifts. But that's what we have so far. Very refreshing, but unfortunately limited to certain dungeons. As for the raids, well, that's where the cringe started to rise. The name itself is misleading, I can tell for sure. I played countless of other MMORPGs and I know that normal and healthy raids usually include a complex dungeon for 8+ players with several bosses who have different attack patterns and skills, and they may even have a background story. But I guess I forgot that I'm playing a mobile game. All they managed to do is to put into this raid activity one fucking round shaped arena with a single boss. This is simply unacceptable and effortless. I have no idea why couldn't they just use the story dungeons and turn them into the actual raids with different mobs and enhanced bosses. This would be a lot more fun in my opinion to try different tactics and builds than running around the same arena 1,000 times and hiding behind this rock as part of boss fight mechanic to avoid instant death. Not exactly sure what the devs offer in other raids, but I don't actually care. I've seen enough in this activity and I'm not willing to spend my precious time there. It is simply astonishing, it is unpolished, it is limited to one area, the rewards are awful and the first raid is completely unattractive to keep going. Simply 12 out of 10. Game of the year, guys. Well, it is time to talk about the fundamentals, the gameplay. The combat in this game is actually fun for the first few hours. You can use up to 5 skills which can later be modified by legendary items instead of runes like it was in Diablo 3. Doesn't look fun to me, to be honest. The amount of useful legendaries and bonuses pretty much limit your possibilities and reduce the room for theory crafting. And what's limiting your builds more is the amount of skills for each class. There are only 14 mostly offensive skills and most of them are from Diablo 3, which players have seen for many countless times before. Of course they look quite good, they feel impactful and stylish, but skills in my opinion lack originality. And after spending several hours on my monk, I feel disconnected from this world. I've seen all these skills before and I was falling asleep because of that. And these skills to me didn't change much throughout my journey to level 60. All that time I spammed the same skills I used when I was a low level because other skills are just plain garbage and they don't look promising at all. Plus I could just mindlessly press all 5 skills and then wait for cooldown while holding my main gen ability to deal basic damage and generate my ultimate ability, which still sucked for 2 reasons. While the ultimate abilities look good and refreshing when you enable them, they unfortunately do not boost or modify the effects of your other abilities, and you can still easily be stunned, knocked back or even killed, which is really annoying. As for the in-game interaction and quests, there too have some problems. Since it is a mobile MMO game, at first I didn't expect to see other players running next to me, because the prologue mission felt like a plain Diablo 3 experience with the memorable location Wortham. But once I reached the actual town and left the church, I was left with a pay-to-win offer window for the first time and the crowd of other players. And then this crowd of fresh players, including me, rushed to other zones to complete the quest and kill specific monsters. This is what sort of ruined my personal experience with the story and daily quests later. When you are playing the campaign and listen to the dialogues or interact with other NPCs, there's a high chance that some mobs will attack your character and thus completely interrupt or skip the dialogue section. And additionally, other players will also be present during this interaction and appear to attack the void, spamming spells, screaming and moving around on your screen. Cool, isn't it? And then there will be a few moments with certain quests when you will have to hunt and kill specific type of enemies, especially for the daily contracts, and this hunt may take up a lot of your time because the world is now shared and other players can literally steal your quest mobs and leave you with nothing. Speaking of daily contracts, also known as bounties, most of the time those annoying contracts will include killing 60 enemies, killing 20 enemies for an item, or killing 10 enemies, then move to another area to kill 12 enemies, and then move to a final area to kill 20 enemies. No idea who came up with this interesting and fascinating idea, but this was probably some Chinese guy. Since we are now playing a mobile MMO, Immortal also introduced several types of rewards which encourage players to enter the game for each day for first kill of the day, rift crests, codex advancements, bestiary, and the time limited battle pass. If players ignore them completely, they won't progress much in this game, so it is less fun and more like a chore. And most of these activities also have a daily or weekly cap, which can also be really annoying, because you cannot advance your gear or level any further until the daily reset. The only feature I liked the most was the bestiary, simply because it is uncapped, it is user friendly, and it is rewarding to complete these pages by farming essence. As for the actual UI where all these features are located, I was rather left confused to navigate all these separate sections to find my exact objectives and rewards. Another issue was the settings menu. For some reason all the settings including controls are not account wide, and I was forced to change controls every time I started a new character. This also applies to the daily rewards, story quests and microtransactions. All that stuff must be collected or purchased on each individual character, and there is no workaround for that. And the final negative experience about UI is the mouse cursor itself. This thing is barely noticeable in action-packed scenes, and I had encountered this issue for several times when I couldn't simply see what exact spot I was targeting. Time to talk about the most painful topic and the biggest reason why this game is hated among the hardcore fans: microtransactions. This, in my opinion, is the best example on how the devs should not monetize their games and treat their players, because here Diablo Immortal actively encourages players to interact with the in-game shop where they can buy almost anything they want for the right price and gain an advantage over the free-to-play players. Specifically the bundles that include keys, legendary crests to improve rift rewards, pile of gems for gear upgrades, eternal orbs to purchase ugly not very ugly skins, rank up your battle pass or unlock empowered rewards, get platinum to trade with other players, purchase crystals or to create your own clan, and reforged stones. All that stuff can cost you some money or precious time depending on what you choose. And what is interesting here is that the amount of items the players acquire from this shop will be sometimes below the required amount to, let's say, open the chest and upgrade the Sanctum Shrine or certain cosmetics. I assume a lot of free-to-play games have this system by design to force players to buy extra pack of orbs to get an item, so I'm not going to focus on that any longer. What's more important to know here is that before you even spend a single penny in this game to buy even some basics like the beginner's pack for a good looking transmog, consider this. These purchases are tied to a single character, meaning if you plan to play on a different character or different server, you will have to start literally from scratch, because all these cosmetics and resources are not account wide. Maybe Blizzard will reconsider this idea, but for now we can't hope for the best. Another crucial aspect of this game for some players is the PvP. I don't play PvP in most games in general, so I'll make it short. In this free-to-play game, PvP is more like pain versus payment, not the player versus player. Thanks to microtransactions, this mod by default is deemed to face balancing issues between average and pay-to-win players. No one of course forces you to play PvP in Diablo Immortal, but since there are two factions with separate rewards, new currency in the leaderboards, players will want to get this rewards by all means, in the form of purchasing bundles to upgrade their gear and gems. In short, who has a better job and money wins, no other options apply. Without spending a single penny into this game, I think this would take months or even years to master your class, upgrade your gear to the maximum possible level and reach the maximum challenge rift level, and this also applies to PvP. If players don't spend enough money to upgrade their gear and gems, they are at disadvantage and will never reach highest ranks compared to credit card players. And before I wrap up this video with my near positive experience, I also wanted to share with you my feedback regarding certain gameplay aspects or quality of life in general that I wish existed in this PC/mobile game. First of all, there is unfortunately no option to transmogrify a certain piece of armor on my character, and no option to hide my helmet to see what abomination I created back in the character creation screen. This whole process of creating a character with custom face, a haircut and eye color is just pointless because of that. Sometimes when I was doing a quest or playing in a group, the game prompted me with the window to join an event or invite players to a group. Because of this unexpected and annoying message, I could sometimes skip the activity or misclick and invite someone I don't want to play with. During my play, I also encountered several bugs related to legendary items, broken animations, disappearing UI, and one funny glitch to fall through the map, which I could easily replicate in this spot on the bridge. Good thing that the characters don't take any fall damage. Warbands, also known as mini-clans, can also create a camp, but I wasn't really impressed by that. The camp itself is some generic mini-zone where players cannot build or change anything except for the banner, and the interaction is very limited. You can sit by the fire, extinguish torches, assign reliquary buffs for your band, or just share the warband equipment which cannot be sold or salvaged from the stash. Not exactly sure why would I need that, because bands are limited to 8 players for raiding, and this camp itself doesn't seem to give any benefits nor buffs. And the final thing that actually bothers my mind is that how Blizzard is going to handle online servers and players' activity in the long term. To my knowledge, players can only play with each other only on one specific server, even though these servers support crossplay, meaning that you can play with your friends on mobile or PC, you will not be able to find or join your friends from a different realm, and players eventually tend to lose interest to these games like Diablo, thus it becomes harder to find groups for raids, greater rifts or PvP. And since there is no way, which is unacceptable for any MMO, to transfer your progress to a different server by any means, this raises a question: what will happen next? Will they sell this transfer for money, or will they completely ignore this problem? Time will tell. Honestly guys, I wasn't expecting much from this game. For a mobile game, I guess it is good. I don't personally play mobile games anymore, but in my experience I haven't seen any mobile games like this, with good visuals, impressive sound design, story and cinematics. Maybe Black Desert Mobile looks even better, but I don't know. If you guys play mobile games, please tell me what Diablo Immortal is like, comparing it with other free-to-play games. But since this game was also ported to PC, I think I can freely compare Diablo Immortal with other PC games and tell for sure that it is worse than 10-year-old Diablo 3, and even worse with all these horrible monetization tricks. To be honest, if this was a one-time purchase game, I would actually buy it and spend a few more hours there, taking into consideration that I won't see any in-game shop, microtransaction or daily quests. But this would require NetEase and Blizzard to completely scrap this concept and make a completely different game. For the first few hours I was actually having fun, listening all the dialogues and cinematics, trying new skills and testing different classes, but halfway through the story I started to realize that this game cannot hold much of my attention, because it is way too familiar from Diablo 3. Raid bosses are terrible, story dungeons are quite okay, but there were not too many with unique approach. The story itself is generic, gameplay is somewhat fun for the first few hours, but then dissolves into repetitive madness. Same applies to painfully familiar map shapes in Elder Rifts, Challenge Rifts and annoying daily contracts. So should you try this abomination or not is only up to you. Thank you for watching and listening. Share your thoughts in the comments, leave a like and subscribe if you want to support my content. Have a nice day and stay safe.